Hello there, duelists. Nice to see you've taken 5 minutes out from playing Master Duel. The real world can be an interesting place, but it would be a bit better with a little more magic, right? Well, hopefully this deck can unlock that, as we have Magikey on the playmat, focusing on summoning every single type, like a load of other archetypes, and also focusing on normal monsters, like a load of other archetypes. Magikey have got a hodgepodge of elements, so let's see if we can fit them together and unlock the deck's potential. Okay, so let's meet the monsters. So first up, we've got 3 Mafteal. So Mafteal's the kind of newest monster, I think. It came out in Burst of Destiny. So he adds an element of extension and kind of fallback options that the deck kind of didn't really have before. If you control a Magikey monster, you can reveal him, you get an additional normal summon of Magikey monster, and if he's normal summoned, you can special summon a level 4 or lower normal monsters from your graveyard to the field. He can only be used for the Synchro, XYZ or whatever it is for a Magikey monster, so you've got to be a little bit careful with how you use him, because you can't go into your kind of generic monsters. From there, we're playing 3 Manju of the 10,000 Hands. So this searches out Ritual Spell or Ritual Monster. You could definitely play Diviner of the Herald, but I mean that card's really expensive, and I'm just not sure that it's worth the justification. But if you're playing online, you could definitely fit in Diviner of the Herald. From there, we're playing 3 Mechmusket. I am skipping over the names beyond the hyphen because there's no way I'll be able to pronounce it. So this is a Ritual Tuner, which is an interesting choice. And when he's summoned, you can add a Magikey card from your deck to your hand. He also has a graveyard, a battle graveyard effect where you can, if your attack is declared involving your Magikey monster and your opponent's monster is the same attribute as a normal monster in your graveyard, you can negate the effects, but it's so rare that comes up that it's almost worth not mentioning. From there, we've got one more ritual, which is the Mechmortar. So this is kind of one of your pieces to your end board, although you can go to a bit earlier, which can insulate against Nibiru and stuff like that. So if 2 different attributes are used for its summon, you can negate the effect of a monster with an attribute of a monster in your graveyard. So if they activate Ash Blossom and you've got a fire in the graveyard, you can negate that effect. He also gains 300 attack points for each attribute in the graveyard, so you can make it pretty big. And then if he's sent to the graveyard, you get to add a Magikey monster from your deck to your hand. So he's got a little bit of kind of recursion if your opponent does manage to sort of deal with him. From there, we've got our bricks. So we've got Deskbot 001, we've got Creation Resonator, and we've got a Mecha Phantom Beast Coltwing. So Coltwing and Deskbot 001 are kind of your standard kind of Auroradon lines, and Creation Resonator is kind of a newer addition to that. And I think this card's actually quite difficult to get hold of, but thankfully I already had one knocking around from building Resonators about 5 years ago, so I think, well, for whatever blessing that is. So yeah, so Deskbot 001, if 2 monsters, machine type monsters, special summon from graveyard, you can special summon it back, and that's not once per turn. Coltwing, if it's special summoned and you control another Mecha Phantom Beast, you can special summon 2 tokens. And Creation Resonator, if you control a level 8 or higher synchro monster, you can special summon it from your hand. And from there, we're playing a few hand traps. So we're playing 3 Effect Veiler, so targeted effect disruption is great in the modern format, and then the 3 PSY-Framegear Gamma. And PSY-Framegear Gamma, because quite a few of your opens are kind of magics or spell cards, if your opponent kind of Ash Blossoms you or whatever it is, you can use the PSY-Frame to kind of get you carry on making you play. And we've got the PSY-Frame Driver to go along with that, and we've also got some normal monsters. So a lot of people are playing a lot of normal monsters. I am not. I am playing Clavkiys, I'm playing 1 Angel Trumpeter, and I'm playing 1 Robotic Knight. And I have seriously considered cutting the Robotic Knight completely. So I think the Skyblaster is pretty crux because he's a Magikey monster, so he's kind of searchable in some instances. Angel Trumpeter is also pretty crux because it's a tuner normal monster, so that can really come up in some circumstances as well. And Robotic Knight, I think if you were desperate for it, you could cut him. I quite like having a fire attribute, which is the one attribute that we kind of struggle a bit with in the deck. So you can end up sending that with some of your kind of through your combo lines, which kind of guarantees you've got negation for every attribute. But I don't think it's worth playing more than this. I think you just end up bricking. And there are ways through that, but then you're compensating for adding more normal monsters when you could just be playing better cards. All right, and then meeting the magics. So we've got 3 Forbidden Chalice carrying on with the kind of like the Effect Veiler targeted negation. We've got 3 Unexpected Dai. So this is a great starter and a great extender. And it can even be used as some recovery if your initial play kind of gets disrupted in certain ways. So just, again, it's just putting a normal monster on board, and that can either be a non-tuner or tuner, depending on kind of what the rest of your hand consists of. So we've got 3 Magikey World. So this has kind of got 2 effects. So when it's activated, you get to add a Magikey monster from your deck to your hand, and then you can add Magikey Mafteal, which is the spell card, and then shuffle a card from your hand back into your deck. So it's great at manipulating your hand in order to make sure that the cards that you want to stay in the deck are in the deck. Which makes it a great fit, for kind of like that Deskbot line. And we're running 2 of the Mafteal. You could cut this down to 1. I think that I've definitely toyed with that because you don't really need more than 1 for your combo, and some things can grab it back from the graveyard. But basically you can fusion summon a Magikey monster, or you can ritual summon a Magikey monster. And if you've got a normal monster, then you can also send a normal monster from your deck in order to do those 2 things, which is great because it means that you can get those normal monsters out of your deck in terms of making sure you don't draw them. So, it's just an all-round solid card. From there, we're playing a couple of other ritual cards. So we're playing High Ritual Art, which is another one that actually came out in fairly recently. Was it in Dawn of Majesty? And then Advanced Ritual Art. So Advanced Ritual Art is kind of a classic. You can ritual summon any ritual monster by sending a normal monster from your deck to the graveyard. High Ritual Art is kind of the opposite of Advanced Ritual Art. So you can tribute a normal monster from your hand to special summon a ritual monster from your deck, which, depending on your kind of hand setup, if you've got either a normal monster, so if you've got Manju and the normal monster, or Manju and the ritual monster, you can pull either one of these 2 out, and that makes the combo. You could definitely run more of them, but again, I think you kind of want to be doing your combo once, and then that's it. If you're having to do your combo more than once, then I think you're probably on the path to losing. From there, we've got a few one-offs. So we've got Call by the Grave, Instant Fusion, and Terraforming. So Terraforming is just another way of getting our field spell, which gives us another monster search, which can improves consistency. Call by the Grave, I wish was at 2, like Master Duel, but it's a kind of at least some insulation against hand traps. And Instant Fusion is kind of an easy way of kind of extending and pushing through some disruption. But I think Instant Fusion could easily be cut. From there, we've got 1 Magikey Unlocking. So this is searchable through the combo, and is basically a spell and trap negation while you control a Magikey ritual monster or a Magikey monster special summon from the extra deck. You can also change the attributes of all your opponent's monsters, but again, I just don't think that comes up that often. The real magic is the spell and trap negation. Okay, and then finally, let's meet the end pieces. So we've got 1 Magikey Beast and 1 Magikey Dragon as our kind of fusions, Magikey fusions. So these are without doubt cuttable. I think if you were to cut both of these, then obviously the instant fusion has to come out. I quite like the beast because it's kind of an immediate extension. The dragon, I think, is probably a flex spot. If you manage to get to dragon, you've probably already won. So beast is a Magikey monster, any normal monster, and then if it's summoned, you can add the spell or ritual, the Magikey Mafteal from your graveyard to your hand. And then once per turn, you can target an attack position monster with the same attribute as a monster in your graveyard, and it loses 1,000 attack. And then if it's any monster that battles with it is banished. Sorry. Dragon, when it's summoned, your opponent can't activate effects, and you can target a normal monster in your graveyard and destroy all monsters your opponent controls with the same attribute. And then if it was used 2 or more different attributes, if an opponent's monster is destroyed by battle or card effects, then you can draw a card. From there we've got Cupid Pitch, Herald the Arclight, and FA Dawn Draster. So these are kind of part of your kind of reward online. So Cupid Pitch, when it's summoned, can increase or decrease its level by the level of the tuner. So we're going to be using 001, so it can go up or down by 1 level. We're almost always going up by 1 level, and then when it's sent to the graveyard, you inflict some damage to your opponent and then get to add the Creation Resonator, basically, is the long and short of it. Herald of the Arclight ends up being kind of our mid-combo line. Sometimes you can end it on it, you know, if you want to, but you know, it's tribute to negate, and all of your opponent's monsters, if they're sent from the hand, go to banished instead. But yeah, I think most of the time that ends up being a mid combo, because when it's sent to the graveyard, you get to search a ritual spell or ritual spell or a ritual monster, which allows us to extend further, basically. Door Dragster is reduce its level by 2 to negate a spell trap card, and that's kind of one of our end board pieces, along with Magikey Fiend and the Borrello Savage Dragon. So Borrello Savage Dragon is the easy one. It's going to equip the Halka Fibrax to itself to gain 2 tokens, get a bit of attack points, and then you can remove a token to banish any, to negate anything. I'm absolutely nailing this. Magikey Fiend has got a absolute load of text. So it's a Magikey tuner and then a normal monster, so it's quite specific to get to, but your Mafteal, you know, is an immediate way of getting to this card. It can make attacks on monsters twice during the battle phase, and then if you use 2 different attributes to get to it, you can set a Magikey spell or trap card directly from your deck. And then if your opponent special summons, I believe, I can't actually remember, normal or special, which is actually quite good. So if you normal or specials a monster of the same attribute as one in your graveyard, you can destroy that, which is, you know, pretty good. So yeah, so I think between these 3 kind of as your end board, you've kind of got a lot of things covered. You've got spell and trap negation, you've got, you know, kind of normal and special summon kind of disruption, you've got a generic negation as well, and you can also put the ritual spell card, sorry, the big ritual out for more negation, along with the set spell and trap negation as well. So it's a solid end board, no doubt. From there, we're playing a few XYZ, although I would argue that most of these are cuttable. So Dagaris, Daigusto Emerald, and Magikey Spirit. So Spirit, if it's XYZ summoned, you can detach a material from the card and then add a level 4 or higher normal monster, and then if it's got a normal monster as material while it battles your opponent's monster, you can detach and make your opponent send a monster to that monster to the graveyard, which is interesting because it can kind of get around like Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, because it's not targeted, you know, it's not destruction. Your opponent's also doing it as well. So stuff that, you know, where it's immune to card effects and stuff like, or your card effects. It's a weird effect, but I wouldn't say it comes up that often. Dagaris the Timeless, you know, you can detach 2 to draw 2 discard, or special summon, or double attack points. So I think it's versatile. It's also a fire, which is a kind of extra deck way of getting a fire attribute in the graveyard, but I would say it doesn't come up that often. Daigusto Emerald, I would say, comes up more, so you can detach to special summon a normal monster, or you can detach to shuffle 3 monsters back into the deck and draw a card. And I think that's much more interesting because it means that you can recycle your normal monsters, or you can recycle kind of your play lines in order to make, you know, the same combo again. So I find that's way better than playing multiples of like the normal monsters. And then finally, as the last XYZ, we've got double A Zeus. So if you attack and manage to get through, you can plop this guy on top for kind of that extra disruption, although I think you're definitely on the back foot if you're summoning this guy because he's kind of like, you're definitely kind of plan B. From there, we're playing one Link Spider and one PSY-Frame Lord Lambda. So these two are, again, kind of spots that you don't have to play. Link Spider, special summon a normal monster from your hand, so that's a way of kind of kicking off your combo. PSY-Frame Lord Lambda, you know, obviously it's great if you've kind of got a Gamma in hand, but it rarely comes up that you're summoning this, at least in your main combo line. And from there, we've got the one Helga for Brex, which is our kind of play starter. If you summon it, then you get to summon the Deskbot 001 from deck, and then you go into Mecha Phantombeast Aurodon, which summons 3 tokens, and you contribute 2 tokens to special summon the Coltwing from your deck, and that's re-summons the Deskbot 001. So it's a great play, but obviously it's got some obvious hand trap targets on its head. So Magikey have a pretty good end board for kind of that, well, in an ideal world, initial 2-card investment. And shuffling back in kind of the bricks that could be potentially in your hand makes it a super great fit for kind of that Aurodon Deskbot 001 kind of line. But once your opponent sees what's happening, the points of interruption are going to be difficult to play through, and they're really obvious. You can play through hand traps if they're not at the right time, but a single disruption can spell doom. So it's a 3 for the relevance. The deck is pretty enjoyable, even though the kind of mid combo is mostly the same. The start and the end are very flexible, which is nice, and there's a lot of room for some tech options, unlike quite a few other combo decks. So it's a 4 for the fun factor. The Magikey cards themselves are really not that pricey, but the surrounding components of this deck make it much more expensive. I've estimated this build at $280, and I think for how powerful the deck is and how consistent it is, I actually don't think it's worth it, which is sad. So, do you think the deck is magical, or is it just that key that sits in the junk drawer that you've forgotten what it opens? Thanks for watching.